And we are back once again, ladies and gentlemen. 13 races on the grid and myself doing the comms for this P0 League race in Canada. I've been absent for a couple of races. Do apologize. Life sometimes gets busy. But I'm looking forward to being back in the saddle and watching these races go and put their careers on the line and see how they actually fare. Going to be first out. We have Chris Alien in the only kick driver out there today. We have Red Bull for Rob. Arwen is in Aston Martin. Remember the orange? McLaren. Dharma for McLaren. Fat Boy Slim for Red Bull. Oh, so Rob for Red Bull Cash App. Looks like we've got both Red Bull Cash Apps going out. So Michelando and Rob for their out laps. Bosch in Alpine. Haas for Kowalski. Elliott in the Ferrari. Williams for Spikely. K-Pax in the Mercedes along with Luke. Chiv for McLaren as well. Pass in the Ferrari. And Baz Living as the other Haas. Most people starting on softs. Only Baz Living, L, Bosch, and Michelando. Tippy tapping out there in the mediums. Be interesting to see everyone's strategies that they're going to hold up today. Potential for some one stops if there's some real cautious tyre care. If not, it should be 2 stops for everyone. There's always potential for a change up with some of the safety cars out there on the pitch, on the track. Rob, Kowalski and Michelando all on hot laps. Sixth and seventh. Bearing down to 8 and 9. Massive hairpin at 10. Cleanly through 11 and 12. Then we're heading for 13 and 14. Lando setting a 110 to start us out with. Bob jumping his teammate a 1.9. Immediately relaxing, going onto the back foot, slowing right down. As Living in the Haas, charging up. 13 and 14. Little wobble coming out of 14. That's a 112. Respectable. Fatboy Slim. Oh, Fatboy Sim, sorry. Setting a purple sector 1. Elliot setting a 1:10.6. Just jumping Michelando by 5/10ths of a second. Viv jumping L. A 1:10.29. Fatboy Sim pushing hard. Kowalski's getting a 1:11. Fatboy Sim invalidated. He'll kick himself for that one. Spike Lee has an invalidated lap as well. Chubby now on the grid. Out for pick. Arwen now also out on a hot lap. Oh, on their out lap. Along with Chris Alien. Rob is pitted. As is L and Michelando. As Living also pitted. Traffic clearing up just a little bit. I believe either Rob has disconnected or retired, potentially. We are on board for Chubby Slug's hot lap. The softs. Round 10, smoothly, holding it together nicely. Out past 11 and 12. Absolutely rocketing towards 13 and 14, coming up fast. Bosch disconnected and having... So holds it together. And across the line for a 1:10.8. Alien chasing his teammates' time. (13 and 14 across it. Pushing hard still. Closes in with a new fast lap. 1:09.2. Cutting Rob's time by 0.6 of a second. Almost exactly. On an out lap, just warming themselves up. Still to see Luke, K-Pax and Speakly out there. As Living struggling just a little bit there. Quickly on their outlap still. Better time. We're seeing one of the two Mercedes going out now. It'll be K-Pax. As Living just off their mark. Seemingly having some issues here. Arwen is now out on the track. We're going on board with K-Pax in just a moment. K-Pax up lap. Through 1 and 2. Cleanly released. Down to 3 and 4. Not even sweating it. Round 5. Diving into 6. Purple sector 1. Controlling it through 7. Eight and 9 negotiated well. Absolutely careening into 10. Purple sector 2. Blasts through 11 and 12. Just trying to buy straight line speed going into 13 and 14 now. Holds it together. Off the pace ever so slightly. Going to potentially stay out for another lap. So all battery has been used. Lucullus coming out for his lap now. Arwen in a bit of a sticky situation there. Skarma negotiates him well. Purple sector 1 for Lucullus. Little rattle coming down to 10. Purple sector 2 though. Potentially a little off the pace here. We'll see. Putting himself in 6th behind Elliott. 7 thousandths of a second off Elliott's time. Skarma having invalidated. Still potentially looking to improve if there's another lap's worth of fuel. Arwen also having invalidated. Basically going hell for the leather, P Tong as it is. 7 done. Down to 8 and 9. Purple sector 2 for him. Round 10. Negotiated relatively well. Just off his pace, half a second out. Real shame. 2 minutes left of qualifying. Both Arwen and Baz Living make about a 0.2 of a second improvement on their times. Team drivers. So he's like first out. Followed by Michelando. Lucullus. Chiv. Skarma. Then Bad Boy Sim. Elliot after them. Bosch. Apex. Chris Allen. Then Arwen. Very busy track. Right at the start of Q2. And we're on board with Chubby Slug for his hot lap. Corners 1 and 2. Ooh, a little bit of a slide out there. Coming through 2. Held it together. 3 and 4. Being taken. Sweep round for 5. Cleanly through 6 and 7. Absolutely powering it down to 8 and 9. A little bit of a snap there. Potentially a connection issue there. It's a very busy track at the moment. Only 4 drivers still in the pits. Ooh, Chubby Stuff comes off the wall after 14. That's a 1:11.8. Orlando setting a 1:10. Lucas setting a 1:10 as well. 1:10.4, 1:10.6 for Mercolando. Garma 1:10.9. Fat Boy Sim 1:10.8. Lucas setting a 1:4. Pace setting a new best time with a 1:10.1. Undercutting by just over 2 tenths of a second. Chris Alien coming in with a 1:9.8. In the pits. On board with Bosch. Track should clear up quite substantially. Both Rob and Speakerly are out on their track. Rob has just gone hot. Arwen having invalidated, having a little bit of a struggle in that 10th corner, it seems. Purple sector 1 for Rob. Through 8 and 9 cleanly. And in sector 2. Round that hairpin for 10. And through 11 and 12. Pushing really hard here in 200 mile an hour. And down 13 and 14. Through. Just off. Just under 2 tenths of a second off from pole. Bosch having invalidated. Complete. Set purple sector 2 for Speakerly. Round the hairpin. pouring that power back on. Through 11 and 12. Barely even noticing them. Very faint corners. Jamming himself through 13 and 14. Gets himself at a 1:11.4. With Arwin, Chiv, L, and Kowalski all on their outlap. Elliot setting a purple sector 1. Drivers are really going to be pushing themselves to try and jump up into that section. Purple sector 2. Hugging that wall. 12 and 13. Dives in, holds it together. Jumps into provisional pole with a 197. A 197. 0.2 of a second. Just under 0.2 of a second faster. Coming in now. Holds it together nicely through 13 and 14. Puts himself in. 5th place. Arwen looking to make himself some room. Find himself a place on the grid. Puts himself in 7th. Cleanly in 7th. Chris is retired. Whilst he's conserving fuel, preparing for another hot lap. Potentially not. Potentially pitting to come back out with just under 5 minutes remaining. They'll never like that. Chubby Slug and Bosch on outlaps, looking to improve on their times. Comes through 13 and 14. We'll start to burn battery and ignite that torch. Looking to cut as much time off of his current best as possible. Very cleanly through the first 4 corners. Not even really noticing the 5th. Goes down a little through 6 and 7. Putting the power back on. Coming down to 8 now. Holds together through 9. Ooh, invalidates just at the end. Bites too much of that white line. He'll kick himself for that, but he's going to hopefully put his head together, clean himself up, and get another hot lap out of this. Bosch now coming around 5th corner. Doing up a little bit of the grass. 6 and 7. Pulls it together through 8 and 9. Keeps it clean. Purple sector 2. Over a second, 1.2 seconds of improved time so far. Let's see if he can hold that together. Oh, invalidates it on 14. Just lets it slip through his fingers by eating too much of that white lineup. He'll be spitting blood with that one. Kowalski on the outlap. Holds it nicely together through 13 and 14. Chubby Suggs sets a 1:10.6. Jumping up the pack slightly. Improving on his last time. Grassy gets past Chubby Slug nicely there. Chubby Slug clearing the way for him. A little bit do or die now. Kowalski is holding it together. Pushing hard. Down to the hairpin, almost doing 200 mile an hour. Controls it nicely. Starts immediately to pour the power back on. Burning a lot of battery to get this done. Kept clean. Puts himself in 13th with a 1:10.7. K-Pac's going into the pits here, or is looking for a lap time? Looking for a lap time. Jumps himself into 9th position with a 1:10.4. Just behind Speakley. 0.02 of a second behind him. The close grid out there. Very close grid out there. Bosch invalidates corner 8. That's a real shame. Fat Boy Sim finishing up his outlap. He will get his hot lap in. Looking for any sort of improvement. Comes out a little wide there. Hugs the wall for 11. Shifts overs for 12. (13 and 14). Ooh. Believe invalidated there. That's a real shame. That's a real shame. Okay, we'll only have players, well, 10 races on the pitch field now. L for the Ferrari, Chris Alien for Kick, Michelando for Cash App, Arwin for Aston Martin, Rob for Cash App, Pace for Ferrari, Chiff for McLaren, Lucullus for Mercedes, Skarma for McLaren, Spikely for Williams. This is going to be a really tight grid. Let's see where they will end up. Arwin having used 3 different sets of tyres so far in this qualifying. Very busy track. We've only got Arwen. Nope, Arwen's out as well. Literally only Speakly sat in the pits. Everyone else is out. With L being the first one out on the track. Here we go. Corners 1 and 2, no challenge. Being hard. Speakly's out on the track as well now. Just in front of Elliott. 3 and 4, chewed up, spat out. Round 5th, barely even noticing it. 6th, 7th, handled cleanly. Absolutely pouring on the power. Just shy of 200 mile an hour into 8th and 9th. Rocketing down to 10. Nails it tightly through there. Eleven and 12, not much to mention. Puts it through 13 and 14. Hammers it through them. Setting a 193. Just shy of a 194, but 193 where we'll have it. Garma setting a 110. Michelando with a 110. Pace a 199. Chiv with a 199. Rob with a 197. Chris Alien having backed off, potentially having found a little bit of trouble. Arwen having invalidated. Luke in the pits. Speakly hammering it down now towards 13 and 14 for himself. 111. Elliot's in the pits. Oh, and seeming to be struggling just a little bit through some of these chicanes. Lucullus on their outlap. Only Arwen and Lucullus set times now. The track is really emptying out fast. Arwen touching the wall ever so slightly. And 14. Wall avoided. That's a 110.6. Respectable. Into 5th. Chris Alien setting a 193.21. 0.06 of a second faster than Nell's time. Lucullus's lap is now hot. 1 and 2. Negotiated with ease and style. Down to 3 and 4. Round 5 hugging that wall. 6 and 7 cutting it really close. Down to 8 now. And 9. Pouring the power on. Nicely round 10. 11 and 12. Getting that 200 mark before going into 13 and 14. Oh, invalidates on 14. Just takes too much of the corner on 14. Going to potentially try and carry some of this speed into a new lap. Lucullus does have time to reset and come back out if he hasn't put one into this one. 7. Real shame. It was looking like a good lap. Give out on a hot lap now as well. I believe Lucullus just invalidated again. Viv already currently under his own time. Speakly out for another lap or another attempt to improve. Viv coming out wide on 10. Lucullus into the pits. Going to reset and come back. What? Chiv into the pits at 200 miles an hour, just shy of. Speakley just invalidated their lap. Believe they have. Outlaps for Chris Alien, Arwin, and Michelando. All looking for improvement and a little bit. Elliott on an outlap as well. Hoping to take back provisional pole. Michelando's gone hot. Coming into a little bit of traffic here. Boys do good and let him by. Listen, L. Shuffling out the way as necessary. Outlaps for all, it would seem. Only Chiv and Rob staying in the pits. Michelando hot right now. As is Chris Alien. Speakley, although Speakley could be going into reset. Arwen hot. Michelando eating up a little bit more of that curve than probably he'd like to have. Oh, absolutely diving through 13 and 14. Almost clips the wall on the way out. Michelando puts himself in 6th with a 1:10.6. I believe Speakley's going into the pits. Oh no. Speakley's staying out. Lucullus looking to set a time. Absolutely robbed himself of an amazing lap earlier in this qualification. I believe that was robbed out of the way there. Elliott and Lucullus coming up to 13 and 14. Luke holds it together. Lucullus putting himself in 4th with a 1:9.7. Chris Alien has retired. Michelando has retired. Give invalidated. Dharma having invalidated. Ooh. Speakley retired. Arwen in the pits. Chiv in the pits. Rob thundering down this. Chiv has retired. Puts himself over the line for a 1:9. Rob jumping Lucullus into 4th. Lucullus in 5th. And retires. He retires. Ooh. That was an intense Q3. Chopping and changing right to the end. So our pole position will be Chris Alien to starters. 2nd, Elliott. 3rd, Pace. Rob in 4th, Lucullus in 5th. 6th will be Chiv. 7th is Arwen. Speakley taking up 8th position. Michelando taking up 9th. And Skarma in 10th. We have both Ferraris up front following the kick, with a Cash App, then Mercedes, then a McLaren, Aston, followed by Williams, another Cash App, and then the McLaren to tail end 10th. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be having our formation lap. Then into the full race. Momentary delay here, people. It'll be sorted out in a minute. I'm going to take this moment to put it out there to anyone watching. If you get the opportunity to donate blood and you're not too scared of needles, go and do it. Your local blood banks will thank you, and you might save someone's life. Also, to any testicle havers, check them. Testicular cancer is the #1 killer of people under the age of 30, so, you know, look after yourselves. Just give them a little feel. Anything out of the ordinary, go talk to your local doctor. It's not embarrassing, and it can save your life. Oh. Literally, as I'm checking in to see if the lobby has shit the bed. And we have a formation lap. So, our race leader coming out of the formation lap is Chris in first, Elliot in second, third is Pace, fourth is Rob, fifth is Luke, sixth is Chiv, Arwen in seventh, Spikely in eighth, ninth is Michelando, Garma in 10th, Hapax in 11th, Chubby Slug in 12th, then it's Kowalski in 13th, 14th is Fatboy Sim, Bosch in 15th and Blaz Living in 16th. Never count a racer out in this. We have seen huge comebacks and massive recovery races from people in this league so far. So it is all to play for, especially with how close and how tight a lot of those times were through the qualifying sections. Everyone pulling up now. A little bit of weaving, a little bit of tactical positioning from people. Here we go. 5 red. And we're on. Elliott jumps Chris straight away. It is tight coming through these first 2 corners with everyone bunched up. There are positions changing all over the course at the moment. Fights happening rapidly and all over. Elliott having gained a position over Chris. Chiv gaining one over Luke. Michelano jumping 2 positions. K-Pax jumping 2 positions. Kowalski jumping 2. Bosch jumping 1. Chris looking to make a move on this long straight. Potentially some sparks coming off of Chris there, coming over that curb. 117. Cars will all be a little bit slower because they're all now full of fuel. There will be improvement to be made on these times. Elliott on the softs. Chris and Pace on mediums. Rob and Chiv joining Elliott on the softs, as well as Fatboy Sim and Blaz Living. The only one on hards at the moment is Arwen. We'll see how these strategies pay off and how they build up. No penalties so far. Obislav gaining 1 place back. Brazilian jumping Elliott. Three-second penalty for Arwen. Brazilian setting a new best lap time of 1:12. Gap opening up in and around Arwen with about a second between him and Michelando. K-Pax sizing up Michelando. Goes tight on him. Arwen not letting it go just yet. K-Pax really fighting for it though. Puts a stamp on it and says, this is my position. I'm taking it. Through 13 and 14. Chris Alien setting a new best time, 1:12. Bosch and Skarma duking it out. Skarma down one position, Bosch up 3. Kowalski looking to see if there is any wiggle room for him if these two go side by side. Luke and Michelando closing in on Chiv. Elliot having dropped back, pace. Jumping his teammate. Lucullus jumping Chiv. Ooh, a little bit of a wobble coming through 14. I believe it is starting to rain. Turning this into a wet track will cause some issues. Chiv being jumped by Michelando now. Michelando pushing hard. Chiv falling back further. Couple of gaps opening up now. Lucullus and Rob both closing in. Sizing up Elliot. Ooh, a little bit of a skid from Elliot there. Lucullus really putting the pressure on Rob now. Keeping it tight against his back bumper. This is where we're going to see any maneuvers. Rob goes for it. Into 13 and 14. Oh, puts screens to it. Elliot gives him the room. Elliot pulls it straight back. He says, no, that's not your position. Lucullus takes the opportunity, though, and goes round Rob. We have Spike Lee, Chiv, Fat Boy, Sim, and Skarma all pitting potentially for intermediates. Yep. Chiv, Spike Lee, Arwin, Fat Boy, Sim, and Skarma all onto intermediates, taking an early pit. Gonna see how that pays off for them. Will this rain persist? Lucullus jumps Elliot. Elliot not necessarily able to hang on to it. K-Pack jumps Rob. And clears him. I think we're starting to see tyres slip and slide a little bit on this track. Chris Alien in to the pit. Pace into the pits. Lucullus diving in. Elliot right behind him. Michelando as well. K-Pack's in. Rob in. Bosch in. Chubby Slugs in. Chiv is going to make massive gains here. Spike Lee takes a 3-second penalty. Chiv's choice brings him out in third. Pace, the only one still on hards. Somehow holding it together on the track. Chiv making the biggest gains there. In terms of jumping it out. Fat Boy Sim into having jumped 6 positions. Michelando having jumped 4, same as Bosch. 3-second penalty comes out for L. Spikely, Arwen, and L all with 3-second penalties. Everyone just getting their feet under them with the intermediates. Trying to grab grip of the new tyre. Spikely sizing up L, coming into 13 and 14. Thinks better of it. Pace dropping back to swap out the hards for intermediates. Seven-second gap for Chris Alien between him and Chiv. Ooh, a little bit of wall being eaten up there by Bosch. Skarma leaving Arwen in the dust there. Pace back out on intermediates now. Really looking to make some of those places back up. That boy Sim having jumped 7 now into 7th place. And it pouring the pace on, sizing up Michelando. Chubby Sub sizing up pace. Again, thinks a little bit better of it. Waiting for a couple of those faster straights to come out. Pours the power on. Bosch picks up a 3-second penalty. Chubby dings the wall there. Chubby's up having lost quite a bit of pace off of that ding. Potential damage? Unknown. Chiv closing that gap from 7 seconds down to only 4.2. Bosch closing in on K-Pax. Elliott really pushing hard now. Michelando just within reach. Goes for the late maneuver and it works. Textbook. Michelando not quite giving up on it yet. Just watching the back end of Elliott slide around a little bit. Again, Chiv closing that gap down. Lucalis doing the same. Everyone looking to tighten up that top 6 places. Spikely. Baz Living picks up a 3-second penalty. Spikely goes the inside on turn 10. Gives it back. And are unwilling to let go just yet. Spikely sees it again. Puts himself up at the inside of Michelando. Into 13 and 14. Held together. More than a second's gap between a good few of our competitors now. Bosch potentially looking to make a move. Bosch jumping K-Pax. Chubby Stuck picks up a 3-second penalty. Michelando taking back the position from Spikely. Lucas having closed down on Chiv now to only 0.4 of a second. And continuing to catch. Chiv having closed it out to now less than 4 seconds. Oh. Kowalski potentially having spun. Back on track. No longer good thing. Likely not giving up yet. This battle for 5th place is really staying hot. Takes him going into first corner. Ooh, slides around a little bit. The second. Bad boy Sim also eyeing up. Ooh. Elliott takes Lucas. Lucas has spun out. Rejoining the track as safely as he can. Minor yellow flag. Apologise I missed that, folks. Can't quite predict when it's going to happen. Kowalski overtaking Arwen. Arwen in the pits. Coming out now. Second stop for Arwen. Still on intermediates. Potentially new set of intermediates. A little bit of damage potentially. Bob and K-Pax fighting over who's in 9th. Picking up a 3-second penalty. Be annoyed about that. Spike Lee picking up a 3-second penalty. Chiv now only needs to close down that time gap. Skarma picking up a 3-second penalty. Ooh, they're all coming out thick and fast now, folks. Again, this is a very tight track when it comes down to it. Pace jumping K-Pax. Starting to make some of that progress back. K-Pax looking to say no. Unable to make it stick. Chubby Slow also eyeing up K-Pax for any potential opening. Pace eyeing up Rob as well. Not letting him slip too far away from him. Elliott having built up almost a 4-second gap between him and Speakley. Closing down the gap between him and Chiv to less than 3 seconds. Oh, Pace holds it together right on Rob's back door. Lucas in full recovery mode now. Lando's sizing up Speakley. Chiv now within the 3-second margin. Oh, Speakley tapping the wall there. I think we're starting to... Bosch picking up a 3-second penalty. Everyone having a little bit of an issue here. Sliding around in the intermediates. Elliott still chasing Chiv. Chiv having dropped back again. Kowalski in the pits. Pace looking to put it up the inside of Rob. Rob says no, implies too much power. Pulls away again. Pace not letting him off the hook that easily. Still looking to hold it together through 13 and 14. Also keeping on him. Skarma picks up another 3-second penalty. I'll check the penalties in about a second for you all. Ooh, Rob slides a little bit wide there. Pace looked to take advantage, but didn't. Blaz living, DNFing. The rain really starting to come down now here, folks. It is getting thicker and heavier, and the track is getting slicker and slicker. LA having built up a safe buffer between him and Speakley for his penalty. Pace looking to make it work. Will he get it to stick by coming in tight? Traffic really has backed up here now. Chiv picks up a 3-second penalty. Chubby in the pits. Skarma in the pits. Pace just looking for any opportunity at the moment. Our front 4 cars all have penalties. Arwen picks up a 3-second. Quite a thick bit of traffic. Pace may look to take advantage of it. Rob says no. Pace is unrelenting. Not gonna lie, I'm just glad I can see the rain. Pace going in to pit. Ooh, very close on the Alpine's tail. Ella's pitted. Chiver's pitted. Gonna do that. We have people coming out in full-on wets now. Chiv out on wets. Elle out on wets. Michelando out on wets. Fat Boy. Sim out on wets. Bosch. Pace. Skarma, K-Pax, Kowalski, they are all out. Brand new wets. Rob on 10 lap old intermediates. Along with Chris, Speakley and Luke. We're going to see how this pays off. Take a look at the penalties at the moment. Chris with a 3 second. Speakley with a 6 second. Chiv with a 3 second. Elliot with 3 seconds, Bosch with 6 seconds, Skarma with 6, Chubby Slug with 3, and Arwen with 6. Elliot puts it down. Ooh, a little bit of contact between Elliot and Rob. Elliot pulling away hard now. These brand new wets really lending credence to themselves. Likely pits. Probably going in for wets now. Boys, is there space for you all there? Elliot into third. I'm not necessarily sure there was space there for all those people. Fierce battle. Picking up. Wet tyres now. The chase is on. Elliot already having built 2.6 seconds over Luke. Shiv needing to pull back 16 seconds on Chris Alien. Chris Alien could, in fact, pit cleanly. However, there is no need at the moment. Battle between Michelando and Fatboy Sim. It is neck and neck and pushing back and forth between them. Michelando is saying, you're not having it. 6th is mine coming into this 13th and 14th corners. Fatboy Sim doesn't really care and is pushing for it still. K-Pax picks up a 3-second penalty. Michelando's back end all over the place there for a second. Rob eyeing up Lucullus. We've had many stops out of people so far today. Kowalski jumping Arwen. 3-second penalty on Elliot, going up to 6 seconds now for him. Gilles starting to eat into that lead now. Chris Alien really starting to struggle on these intermediates. Sliding all over the place. Can't really seem to put the power down. Ooh, just avoids the wall there. We may see Chris Alien pit for wets this lap. Shiv really starting to eat into that lead. Rob looking to potentially make a move. Seven seconds between Lucullus and Elliot. Elliot's penalty no longer making the difference here now. Ooh, Rob nearly doesn't stop in time and gets round Lucullus, having to back right off. Kowalski picks up a 3-second penalty. Ooh, Fatboy Sim. Lando and Rob trading places, teammates back and forth. Do not take each other out here, boys. Lucullus into the pits. Rob into the pits. Fatboy Sim jumping them. Spikely jumping them. Michelando jumping them. Come out late. Lucullus and Rob both in the pits. Apex coming out in front of his teammate. As it is. Chris Alien holding it together so far on one stop. Still on the intermediates. 14 laps in. 14 to go. However, that lead has been shrunk to only 11 seconds. 11 and a half seconds, in fact. It's still a long way for Chiv to make the gap up, but it is coming down slowly. Fatboy Sim having jumped 10 places now, only 9 seconds behind Elliot. Elliot keeping that gap between him and Chiv closing. pace looking potentially to jump Bosch in the wet. Bosch really struggling around that corner there. He's got to pick his time and place. On this track, in the wet, it is going to be difficult. Wrong application of power in the wrong section, and you will be into one of those walls. Chiv bring it down to 10 seconds. Chris Alien potentially needing to pit at some point. Don't know if he'll be able to take the intermediates all the way to the end. Well, potentially making plans on Lucullus. Racers have all sort of put themselves together now. Everyone's settling in for a wet race. The only really ones at the moment looking for immediate overtakes are Pace and Rob, but Chiv is now down to 7 seconds. Elliot holding up that 4-second barrier between him and Chiv. 9 seconds between Fatboy Sims and L. They are closing that time down. Chris had wanted to pit. He really should have done it. Maybe 4 or 5 laps ago. Fatboy Sims really having put the work in. That is Chris in the pit now. Will he get out in time? Got L into the pits as well. 3-second time penalty for Arwen. Chiv is out in front of Chris. Elliot back in 6th. Chris out in 2nd. Elliot coming out in 8th. Chris tags the wall. Everyone now on at least 2 stops. Chris Alien on to brand new wets. Elliot on to brand new intermediates. Have a quick check of the penalties. New 3-second penalty coming out for Bosch. 3 seconds to Chiv, 3 seconds to Chris. 6 for Speakley. 9 for Bosch. 6 for Elliot. 6 for Skarma. 3 for K-Pax. 3 for Chubby Slug. 3 for Kowalski. 9 seconds for Arwen. Speakley overtaking Michelando and Bosch in the pits. Elliot jumping them both. Elliot jumping Skarma, or holding his position ahead of Skarma, sorry. Elliot now chasing his own teammate. Michelando and Bosch all the way down, potentially having changed to intermediates. Yep. Over to intermediates. Will this have been at the right time? Both Chiv and Chris Alien and Fatboy Sims, first to fifth, are all on wet tyres. Newest wet tyres on Chris Alien. He's starting to pull some of that time back that he lost going into the pits and making it up on Chiv. Chris Alien picks up a 3-second penalty. Up to a 6-second penalty on Chris Alien. Rob with designs on Michelando, his teammate. Pace pits. Pace, I believe now on the intermediates just behind Rob. Speakley absolutely gunning it, trying to close in even further on Fatboy Sims. Track starting to dry now. The rain has subsided some. Chiv pits. Chris Alien back in first. Skarma picks up a 3-second penalty. Chiv still in the pits. Where will he come out? L now in a McLaren sandwich. Chiv is hot on the heels of Spikely. Ooh. Not sure what just happened there. But it would appear Arwen as a back marker is being overtaken. A little bit of a kerfuffle as that happened. Chiv eyeing up Spikely. Oh, putting it to him. Outbreaks him. A little bit of contact to 13-14. Puts pay to it though and absolutely rockets by. Caution again. Arwen having DNF, now retiring. Elliot also sizing up Spikely. Pace doing the same to Rob. Toby's Hook picks up another 3-second penalty. K-Pack's in the pits. Ooh. Elliot makes the maneuver. Diving into 10. Takes the inside track, forces him round. Makes it work into 4th. Puts that power right back on the track. Track now drying up a lot. Chris's wets will start to cry out very quickly with this little water on the track. Point being proven. Chiv now closing. Only a second between him and Fatboy Sims. The intermediates will start to outperform them massively. Come in the pit. Bosch picks up another 3-second penalty. Less than half a second. Chiv just absolutely closing the distance between him and Flatboy Sims. Spikely picking up a 3-second penalty. Ooh. Forces him wide. Elliot closing as well. Blood has been smelt in the water. Going to close out that time. With 6 laps to do it, there is a chance. Especially with the speed difference we've seen with the intermediates versus the wet on this drier track. He's looking to put pain to Rob. Lando eyeing up Luke. Kowalski picks up 3 seconds. Chiv closing down the gap between himself and Chris to only just under 8 seconds now. Elliot potentially seeing his opportunity. Go around the outside. Brakes. Sends it wide. Fatboy Sims loses it on corner 14. Elliot takes the position off him. Pushing hard now. Chiv doing the same. Chris Alien really starting to struggle on these wets. In this mostly dry condition now. Whoa. Holding it together valiantly around some of these corners. Starting to lose some of that poise that we have seen from him. Chubby Slug pitting. Gap to leader. Penalties. All Chiv has to do is bring it to a less than a 3 second gap between him and Chris Alien, and he will have his pole position. A lot of work to be done, but it's not impossible. Michelando with designs on Lucullus. Spike Lee DNFs. Not sure what just happened there. Pace right on the rear end of Rob. Chris Alien picks up another 3 second penalty. Really struggling on these tyres now. What does that leave us? Bosch picks up 3 second penalty. 9 seconds on Chris Alien. That puts Chiv in first at the moment. As long as he can hold it together. Chris Alien really struggling now on these old wet tyres. Michelando still trying to put pain to Lucullus. Lucullus valiantly defending. Unable to stave him off much longer, though, potentially. Skarma picks up another 3 seconds. Lucullus still saying no, keeping that inside edge, forcing him out. Neck and neck here. Neither driver unwilling to yield. Oh! And Lucullus keeps it together. Still battling. 5 or 6 corners consecutively now. Michelando lets him away. Unable to put the final hammer to him and take the position. Amazing bit of driving defensively from Luke. Absolutely brilliant attack from Michelando, just unable to make it work against the absolute bastion that was Lucullus there. Skarma coming up the inside of pace, having to drop back. Messy. Michelando puts it past Lucullus. Skids out a little bit. Lucullus staying with him. Pace and Rob still battling it out. Chiv closing in ever more. Chubby's like picking up 3 seconds. Chris Alien really struggling here. Chris Alien has him in sights for the first time in a while in this race. 1 lap to go. Elliott trying to pull back as much as he can. Just trying to keep that gap between him and Fatboy Sims alive. Out between him and Chris Alien. At the moment, looking at a third. Still a podium. Give. Potentially heroically looking. Bosch picks up another 3 seconds. Pass putting pay to it. Going round the inside of Rob. Can he make it stick? Rob and Skarma all over the back of him. Michelando picks up 3 seconds. Lucullus picks up 3 seconds. A massive scuffle going on behind pace now. Having pulled himself back to 7th. 10 seconds opening up between Elliott and Sims. Chiv looking heroically to make the dive. Gets past Chris Alien. Potentially Chris Alien allowing him by at that last moment. Knowing that it won't make the difference with the time penalties. Chiv and Chris Alien finishing. Elliott across the line. Chiv in first. Chris Alien in second. Third goes to Elliott. We'll see how it all meters out now. Fatboy Sims in 4th. Michelando in 5th. Lucullus in 6th. Pace in 7th. 8th goes to Rob. 9th goes to Skarma. Bosch in 10th. Apex jumps him into 10th now. Bosch in 11th. Hell of a drive from these boys. Chubby Slug is in 12th. Kowalski finishing in 13th. Hell of a fight out there against this track. Fatboy Sims being given driver of the day. I would tend to agree, with honourable mentions to Lucullus for that absolutely titanic defence, and to Chiv with the sound tactical decision making and strategic use of tyres. A couple of amazing choices came out there as well, with tyre choice from Elliott and Pace. Holding it together, potentially one lap too long for Pace on the hards before changing his mind. Chris Alien suffering ever so slightly from sticking on the intermediates for too long and then on the wets for too long. As it stands, going from top to bottom, it is Chiv for McLaren in first, Chris Alien in second for Kick, Elliott in the Ferrari for third, Fatboy Sims for Red Bull in fourth, Michelando for Visa Cash App in fifth, Lucullus for McLaren in sixth, seventh goes to Pace in Ferrari, Rob for 8 in Visa Cash App, Skarma for McLaren in 9th, Haypax for Mercedes in 10th, Alpine Bosch in 11th, Kick Chubby Slug 12th, Pass Kowalski 13th, 14th is Williams for Spikely, Arwen for Aston Martin in 15th. I believe it's the other Haas within 16th. As living. Amazingly done. Brilliant race from everyone. I'm going to see if we can get our podium positions in. Bear with me one moment.
I found it.
We're in.
Welcome in, one and all. Amazing race from all of you. Honestly, I was terrified for a moment I wouldn't be able to get water and I have to try and explain to everyone that there was no water and there is water. But it did happen. Is this the first wet race of the season?
Yes, I believe so. Oh no, Spa was wet quali, if you count that.
Spa was wet quality. I don't think the race was wet.
So how are we all feeling, Chiv? Thoughts first of all?
Tired.
It was a hell of a battle.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of having this quite big adrenaline dump, if I'm honest. No, it was just a lot of concentration just to keep it on the track. It was really slippery, and it was just a case of making the right choices with tyres at the right time, if I'm honest.
Chris, my heart goes out to you. You were battling your tyres for the longest time towards the end there.
I think the right person won the race in the end. I always think those who get the strategy right deserve it, and I think I got my first half of my strategy right, and then when I chose to pit in the inters was just all wrong. And yeah, I mean, I still think the right guy won the race. Penalties aside, Shiv, both of the wet stints was hunting me down. There was not much I could do about it. So yeah,
Absolutely
just wet
rushing that
weather,
time
very
gap.
slippy, absolutely horrendous, that circuit. And I was running like 32 rear wings, so it was just a mess.
Elliot, how do you feel?
But credit to Shiv.
Absolutely credit to
I'm
him.
happy. That's still a good result, but yeah, Shiv and Elgit, and a tough day to get strategy calls right because the weather was really drawn out. I think they two got it spot on at the top 5. So
No, absolutely. The top 5 shuffled around quite a lot, and it was all really sound decision making on the tyres from everyone.
yeah, but good race. I enjoy it. Well, I don't know if I enjoy being hunted, but yeah, it was as Shiv says, a good adrenaline hit. It's always nice when it gets the blood pumping.
Elliot, how do you feel you raced?
I mean, I sort of lucked into a podium, it feels like. I went on the softs at the start, which I thought was right, and most certainly wasn't. They were undrivable after 4
They
laps.
were horrendous, weren't they?
And-
Did the same thing.
It was Rob and Luke passed me, and then Luke spun in sympathy on his own, and then Rob made the wrong strategy call, so I was kind of in no man's land then. I do want to give credit to Cleon, who rode the wets to the end, going from 14th to 4th, which is insane. I don't know how on
Wow.
earth he took those
Absolute
to the end.
madman, if I'm honest.
So yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the podium. It's just, you know.
Wait,
I
is
wanna say no
Cleon
points.
Fatboy Sims?
Yes, yeah, he's changed his name.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I can't be mad at the podium. I didn't think I was going to get it, so yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So the game gave driver of the day to Fatboy Sims. Personally, I was gonna give it to Chiv because the calls were right and the racing was phenomenal. And he did absolutely hunt you down, Chris. He gave you not an inch to really waver on your decisions.
Yep, it was yeah, the faster man one today.
Oh, well,
Oh, there we are.
congratulations
Thank
to you
you,
all
Gilles, for your
again.
comms.
Absolutely brilliant. Always enjoy watching all of you race. The 3 of you always could put a good showing on, and the rest of the grid also put an amazing showing on.
No, I'm looking forward to watch it back because, yeah, I couldn't really tell what anyone else was doing from where I was sat. So I'm looking to see how it played out for everyone else.
It was a moment where I thought I would undercut Chiv on the last interstint, and it just fucked off. I mean, honestly, I don't know where you got the race pace from. You just left.
Yeah,
When
you
tried
eyed
to
him up.
undercut me, when you tried to undercut me, I thought it's a lap or two too soon. I thought it's not quite the lap; it'll be the next one,
Well,
and it worked out all right.
There was a couple of moments across the entire grid where people would go, I'm going to make a decision here and I'm going to put my foot down. And just people decided, nope, and did the same. Madness. Right. Thank you both very much. I will let you go, cool off, have a shower, maybe a mid-strength beer and a lie down.
Bottle of gin.
Sounds good. Shows in the strong stuff.
Have a good evening, boys.
Yeah,
GG's,
on you.
boys.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
mate.
you for comms.
Thank you all.
See you
Not
later.
a problem.
Ta-ra.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the conclusion of the race. Absolutely brilliant from everyone and a wonderful time. We will be back next Sunday. Potentially, I will be doing the comms again. If not, it may be someone else. Oh, it's always a good race. GG, and we'll see you next time.